PodcastTVWrestling.com. I'm Derek Sabato here for the next episode of Beyond the Lens with David Sahadi. David, how you doing tonight?
I am doing great, Derek, and there's some great news that just broke recently.
Yeah,
I'll let you tell the viewers about it.
Yeah, it looks like the rumor and innuendo from John Alba of Sports Illustrated is that TNA, with the help of WWE, is moving to the CW. David, you've been an employee at Impact TNA many times, many years. What are your thoughts on the rumor that TNA could be making its way to the CW?
I think it's true, and I'm ecstatic for them, Derek, because I worked there for 20 years with 1 year that was off, and a great environment. I have a lot of friends that still work there. Guys that started when they're like 21, 22, and right now they're directing shows. They're in their 40s. So it's been a long journey. It's been a long process, but that is fantastic news, not just for TNA, but for the entire wrestling world as well. I'm actually wearing a all access pass right now in respect to them. I wish I had some TNA chance to play, and my baseball cap says this.
There it is.
I had a different cap on until I heard the news a little while ago, so good for them.
It is good for the professional wrestling business to have more companies on television. It's good for the wrestlers. It's good for office. It's good for production. It's good for everybody. So the idea that we are now possibly going to have some head-to-head competition between TNA and AEW.
Yeah.
How do you see that unfolding?
TNA has better writers. So
interesting.
I think that, yes, and I like their roster too. I really do. Their storylines are good. And I was there for so many years, and the current roster, I know most of them, and they're just great to work with. They care. They put 120% in. So I couldn't be happier. I think they're probably going to beat AEW Dynamite. And I think Eric Bischoff has been saying this for a while, has he not? That the one thing TNA needs is a bigger TV deal. And he actually has been warning AEW like their real competition is TNA. That was coming up. So look out for them. They could be the number 2 promotion really fast. That's what he was saying. And I completely agree. Again, I have a lot of friends still there because I'm allowed to have friends there, unlike WWE. Yeah. So again, they're all celebrating, and I'm going to celebrate for them too.
When you see the professional wrestling landscape turn into content creation, because that's essentially what it is now.
Yes.
I think back to Jeff Jarrett in 2002, and this is one of the things he said, we're going to get to. We're going to get to YouTube. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Man, Jeff just knew. Jeff was ahead of the game, was he not?
He certainly was, yeah. And I love working for Jeff. He's the reason why I stopped my sabbatical and came out of the mountains to come back and work for wrestling. Jeff's a great leader. He had the dream. We had a great deal with Spike TV, which I helped get. That's probably a story for another show, but this is like a great network for them to be on. So good for them.
One of the things I've always find interesting, and one of the things we've discussed in the past privately, not here on the show, is that you were a major part of TNA getting the Spike TV deal, were you not?
Yes, I was. And my dad's a constant theme in the stories that I've been telling and will tell.
Yes.
When that cookies and balloons incident happened, which you talked about a couple of shows ago,
yep.
That just really aggravated me and angered me. And I channeled that anger into calling Jeff and saying, hey, I want to come back to TNA full-time right now. And this is 2004. And I'll help get you a TV contract, because I knew people at Spike TV. I knew Kevin Kay, the president. So it's funny how things work. Like WWE doing that to my dad, taking his Legends check, inspired me to go to TNA. And then they get the TV deal with Spike. And now we're working, or they're working with WWE. It's just great. It's kind of like a full circle moment for them.
When you talk about how integral you were for the Spike TV deal with TNA, were you there for the end of the Spike deal with TNA?
Yes, I was. The only year that I wasn't there, Derek, were the first couple of years. I joined them in 2004 when they were shifting from that 2-hour Wednesday show to the monthly pay-per-views.
Yes.
And then when Anthem purchased TNA and Impact, I was furloughed for 1 year in 2018 and came back in 2019. So I've been there for every year except for 2018 and then this past current year.
What was the story? Because there's always been a lot of talk about how the TNA Spike deal imploded. Do
Yeah.
you know what happened with the TNA Spike deal?
Yes, I know that the executives there, including Scott Fishman, were not happy with the product. They're not happy with the writing. They're not happy with a lot of things. Dixie, in the last contract, was insisting that a show called Dixie Land, which was a reality show, which we're going to talk about later. It's a show about her being a mother, a wife, and a person who's running a wrestling company. You know, the female Vince McMahon of wrestling. She was insisting that a show like that be included with the next Impact deal. And Spike said, no, we just want Impact. And that was going on for half a year. And Spike was getting frustrated, and the frustrations finally boiled over when Vince Russo accidentally sent an email, because one thing that Spike did not want was him writing the shows being part of that. And they swore that he was not. And then that email that surfaced proved that they lied, that Vince Russo was a part of TNA. So I think between Dixieland and the Vince Russo lie, that was the demise of TNA and Spike TV. They just had enough of everything that was going on. And the product was really starting to suffer then too.
What the Vince Russo email has always been a moment of just sheer how does this happen?
Yeah.
But what was Spike's issue with Russo's? I've never heard a TV network go, hey, we don't want him writing. And then the company kayfabe it essentially.
Yeah.
So what was the issue there?
I'll compare it to Eric Bischoff. He believed in storyline arcs, whether they're 3 months, 6 months, or a year. And Vince had great ideas, and he had some ideas that weren't that great. That's true with anybody. But a lot of the ideas that we were doing and the storylines, like, would just stop suddenly. They never reach their completion. So we're building a storyline for a month, and all of a sudden it just ends. It's forgotten. It's moved on to something else before anything was resolved. So they were frustrated with that. They're frustrated with the fact that Vince was indecisive at times, especially when we were taping shows in the truck. It would take him a while to make a decision if something wasn't working out. And, you know, there was all the politics that was involved with Vince Russo too. So they did not like Vince, especially Brian Diamond, I believe, was the main executive that did not like Vince Russo whatsoever. And they loved Jeff Jarrett, but, you know, he wasn't there towards the end. So basically that was it, personality, style, and the product that we were putting out at the time. And again, to start storylines constantly, Derek, and have them not end, that's just like, you know, that's a disgrace to the fans. You know, resolve it some way or do something to explain why it's not going on anymore, but it'd be like it never started. On to the next thing. Lack of continuity.
Right. Do you think Vince was just over his head at that point, or had checked out, or was it just Dixie? What Vince seems like when he's writing, he's always invested, and it didn't feel like it at the end. Why do you think that was?
Because Dixie was very involved, and Dixie wanted things done her way. And she had a lot of say in what Vince was writing. And Vince Russo is also a guy who I think has great ideas, as I said, but has some ideas that aren't so great. And it's always good for him to have somebody that keeps him in check. And that's why Vince and Vince back in the WWE and the Attitude Era worked so well, because they would keep each other in check. Vince McMahon had an idea that was bad, and Vince would call him out on that, and vice versa. For Vince Russo had an idea that was bad. But when Vince had a good idea, Vince Russo, Vince McMahon would like that and add to that and enhance that. So it's always good to have a check and balances with somebody. I'll take it a personal thing with myself. Whenever I was writing a spot or conceiving of a spot in WWE, my best friend there, Chris Chambers, a very talented producer, I'd run an idea by him. And he would look at that and say, I love this idea. What if you do something here at the end? Just adding a little tweak, Derek, would make such a major difference. Sometimes the nuance and the subtle is what's important as a changer. And the same thing with Chris Chambers. If he had an idea and he'd run it by me, I would often say, hey, I love this, but what if we had this happen instead? So it's always good when you have somebody to check and balance and to, you know, co-create with.
Funny that this is the conversation right now, because I would love to know more about Dixie Land.
My gosh, it was terrible.
Were you a part of those conversations?
Yes and no. I chose not to be, but it was something that Dixie was insistent on. She thought that, you know, it would be a big hit show. And I don't think anybody else agreed with her, but she's running the company. she's a money person. She's a president. So if Dixie wants it, we have to begrudgingly do what she wants. So
Sure.
I was in some of the shows like the director in the background, but I wasn't a featured person in the show. And it was being shot by some people that were just like, it was a side project for them. So I don't think it was fully ever thought out. I wish I had some input on that, besides saying it's a bad idea. I could have maybe helped the bad idea be a little bit better, but I wasn't giving any input to that because I don't think Dixie ever really trusted me at one point, especially when the whole Jeff Jarrett thing happened because she thought maybe I was on Team Jarrett. Dixie and Jeff always had this uneasy relationship and they could never get along. They would always look for like one little thing to bicker about. And for Dixie to give herself a reason to remove Jeff from his responsibilities. And Jeff hated the fact that he was a wrestling guy with a wrestling mindset and Dixie wasn't. And she would reject some of Jeff Jarrett's ideas. And that would frustrate Jeff greatly. So they had a relationship that was just, it was out of necessity because Dixie's father came through when they were losing money because I think it was Enron that was their financier, went bankrupt, and Dixie's father, Panda Energy, came in and they financed a company and made Dixie president. So Jeff kind of had no choice but to listen to her at the end.
Dixieland was ahead of its time as a professional wrestling reality show, but a professional wrestling reality show that is kind of taking the world by storm is WWE Untold.
Yeah.
You watched a little bit of it this week, so I want to get your thoughts. I'm sorry, not WWE Untold, WWE Unreal.
Unreal, yes.
I want your thoughts on what you saw, you watched in the presentation of WWE Unreal on Netflix.
It is completely fake. It's fabricated. It's meant to be passed off as a reality show, but I can tell you many instances that I saw in the first episode and other episodes as well. Before we go there, speaking about that show, I wanted to just play a friend of mine named Gunnar Mathis. He is a huge wrestling fan. So I wanted to get a fan's perspective, Derek, before we talk about your perspective and mine. And I asked him what he thought about that. And it's only 30 seconds, but I'd like to play that just so we have a fan's perspective on what he thought about that show.
Yeah.
And of course, if I can find it in my myriad of all these videos that I have. And I'm getting close. And here he goes. Here is Gunnar Mathis.
You think it's real or scripted? 100% scripted. I mean, the stuff on there is absolutely bullshit.
Now I ask him to elaborate why.
Honestly, everybody complained about the show, saying it's exposing the business and all that. I mean, let's be honest, most fans know what's going to happen now regardless anyways, but I think this was just like a huge ego boost for Triple H. I think that's what this show was. And so I think most of the show, they can leave anything out of this show that they don't want seen. And so I think I would say a good 80% of the show is scripted and stuff that they just want you to see and believe to further their own storylines and to basically create a further disbelief with the audience.
Now that's a fan. So if a fan says that, I mean, it's just fans are not liking this whatsoever. It's called Unreal. I call it the Triple H and Bruce Pritchard show. Because they are featured. It's really about them. And I told you last week I'll check out a couple of episodes. And here are some giveaways, Derek, that it is scripted and fabricated. You see Triple H talking with Rhea Ripley, and she's on the far side of the ring. This is during the afternoon. And the camera is about 20 feet away. And you hear them talking, the audio is pristine.
Right.
And there are people that are between them and you can't hear the audio whatsoever. So it's one of two things. Either they're mic'd with lavs or there's somebody off camera holding a big boom microphone right above their head. So they know they're being recorded. They know exactly what they're going to talk about. They know the cameras are on. That's one giveaway. You mentioned the Chris Park incident with Bruce Pritchard. And I want to get your thought on that in a second, but there's Chris Park sitting there and there's a Bruce Pritchard standing up and I hear Chris Park perfectly. But there are two guys, if you notice, that are in the foreground between the camera and Chris Park, and you can't hear a single thing they're saying. So Chris Park is mic'd up. He knows that what he's saying is going to be used. And as Gunnar the fan said, they can cut anything they want to that doesn't work right. Or they can do extra takes, fake takes, which is what we used to do when we wanted to pass something off as reality. You say, hey, let's do that again, and we'll cut that in and splice it in. Your perspective as a referee being there, is
Yes.
different than mine as a director. So I'd actually like to hear your perspective on that scene and why you thought that's not what happens. And then I'll tell you mine.
So, being a professional wrestling referee, you are constantly being talked to while you're in the ring.
Oh,
So
yes.
you are being told, you'll hear 4 or 5 different voices. You really should just hear the agent and the producer more than anybody. But when you have an agent in your ear telling you, hey, we're running long, we need to cut this, we need to cut that, that is factual. That happens all the time. We're running long, we're running late. The idea that you are 20 minutes into the main event of the debut show
Mhm.
on Raw, on Netflix, and you are that far ahead and you need to cut, that message is going to be delivered before they go through the curtain.
Yes.
It is not going to be delivered by the referee in the
Yeah.
middle of the steel cage match going, hey, you got to cut some shit out.
Yeah.
Is a time cue missed? Yes. Are they going too long? Yes. Is all that possible? Yes. Will we see the producer, Chris Park, walk up to the head of the executive writing, Bruce Pritchard, and go, we cut a lot of shit out, but we got there. And
Yeah.
Bruce's response is, listen, it was overwritten, it was overproduced, it was overbooked, but it was still a hell of a match. And then you see Chris Park turn and go right to William Regal, and William gives him the babyface answer. You did great. You did great.
Yeah.
To me, for someone who sat backstage, who's been in that gorilla position, who's seen it, who's also been mic'd in my ear to hear the time cues, it was for the show.
Yeah, I'm smiling, Derek, because you're so passionate about this. And I love that because it's like they're trying to scam you. And working with Bruce Pritchard when he was in TNA as a director, they don't talk so calmly. I mean,
No.
they're screaming. There are F-bombs that are dropped, constant screaming. And here Bruce is acting so calm and collected, a little bit nervous. So to me, that is like, BS too. I mean, I cannot tell you how many F-bombs Bruce Pritchard would drop when he was man in the grill position. Just
Not
screaming all the
just
time.
Bruce, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Everyone
Yeah.
in the grill. If you think there was a lot of cursing on WWE Untold,
Yeah.
that is a 25% of what goes on in a production truck, in
Yes.
Gorilla, in the
Yes.
ring,
Yeah.
pre-match, after match. Every other word in this business is the F word.
Yes. And that set, the gorilla position, it's a set that was made just for this show. I've never seen a gorilla position look that nice and look that pristine. Normally they're right there when you're getting ready to go on out and there are a couple tables spread here and there, but it's like the way it was designed and set up, that it was designed just for TV, just for
Yes.
this show. I don't think that existed before this show. So that, they're trying to make you feel as though it did exist before. No, it didn't. Not at all.
It's interesting to me because we talk about reality TV.
Mhm.
We had all these ideas, and now all of a sudden, here it is, presentation. Now, I work out of professional wrestling in a real job, shoot job, as we like to call it. And I had people come up to me and go, this is really entertaining stuff.
Mhm.
This makes me want to watch more of this. And my response to that was, does this make you want to watch the actual professional wrestling matches or the events or the cards? And they go, no.
Yeah. And that's more important, watching the events and the cards and the matches.
Right. So I think it's a great look behind the scenes for people, but I do not think this is what everyone thinks it is. If you see something put out by a professional wrestling company, it is a work.
Yes, exactly. And this show definitely is. And somebody asked me, is this the future of the business? Is this the way it's going to go? And I'm like, no, not whatsoever, because the stars are the same each week, Triple H and Bruce Pritchard. And just like it's going to be, cut and repeat every single episode, the same kind of thing without really a big storyline. It's great to watch 2 or 3 episodes, but it gets old after that time. It really does. And I love watching wrestling documentaries, Derek, because there are so many out there. There are hundreds of them that are out there. And one can be about a wrestler that I never liked, but I'll watch the first minute and I'm hooked. It's hearing the story. Now then I'll watch this documentary and learn things that I never knew. This show, Unscripted, it's the same thing every single episode. It's a formula. So there aren't these unique personalities that, captivate you and pull you in. There isn't much emotion there. The emotion that's there, I think, is a little faked. And it's always going to be the same. So I don't see how this thing can be sustainable or the future of the business whatsoever.
It is interesting to note that there have been reports of cameras already being backstage at SummerSlam for Seth Rollins' cash in, for the Brock Lesnar return, as we discussed last week. So this element of them, it is a pat on the back at the end of the day for them to go, hey, we're doing all this. This is what we're doing. And we can't do it in front of the camera, in front of our national TV audience. So this is our outlet for it. Is it content? Is it production? Listen, the episodes were good. The interaction was good. There's some things that people learned, but at the end of the day, they're going to start wrapping storylines into this. And I think the Seth Rollins storyline, especially, if you follow what was on television, he hurt his knee, right? Well, he immediately lost his match, and now he's got CM Punk full, but CM Punk's not the champion, even though he's got the briefcase, but Gunther's the champion. He's got to hope that Gunther and Punk square off for this all. None of it's going to make sense on TV until you watch Untold. That to me, I think, is a mistake. I don't think the stories make sense. And if you're holding off for it, watch the next season of Untold, because you'll see what really happened. It's still a work. And that's where I think it's.
And you have me confused on that whole thing, Derek. So it's like, are they doing this just to make Untold something that you must see to get the full story? And when you start doing that, you're compromising your product and the integrity of the actual show. SmackDown or Raw. So does Seth Rollins know there's going to be cameras placed in certain areas? Of course he does. He's going to be told that. Yeah, same thing with Brock Lesnar. But to compromise your main flagship shows for this quote-unquote reality show is just an inherent mistake. Reality shows are best when nobody knows cameras are there. When, the audio isn't perfect because nobody's mic'd up. That's when you get the real stuff. You don't get the real stuff. People are acting, and they actually write down lines. Every great play-by-play announcer I work with, Mike Tenay, Tom Hannafan, they always write down lines they want to say to introduce the show, to introduce a wrestler when they're coming on out. For when somebody wins, they write down a line too and how they want to say that. So they have scripted lines that they go out there knowing that they're going to say this at the right moment. And I am sure, I would bet you anything in the world that Unreal, they have scripted lines that they know they want to say during the taping of this thing to be in the show. So it's bogus, if you ask me. It's interesting to watch, but it's bogus.
It is going to be interesting to see what the next season looks like, especially with the Karrion Kross issue. I got to ask, did you watch TMZ and the Hulk Hogan documentary this past week?
I wish I did. No, but that's on my list to watch this weekend.
Okay. We will get back
more
to that
informed
next
to talk to you about that next week. Yes.
Yeah, we will get back to that next week here on Beyond the Lens. And I want to thank everyone so far who's joined us. We know we're supposed to talk about The Rock. We're getting to The Rock. Late breaking news. We always want to make sure that we're present and accounted for. But let's talk about the man.
Wouldn't it be silly for a second? We're saying late breaking news. TNA, TNA, TNA. I wish I had recorded chat for you, but I couldn't find one in time.
It is not a bad thing for TNA to get a TV deal. I promise you that. But speaking of television and speaking of stars, let's get to our topic. The great one, the man, the guy who's transcended professional wrestling into movies and back and forth. Dwayne Johnson, Rocky Maivia, The Rock. David Sahadi, how did you first meet Rocky Maivia?
I first met Rocky Maivia when he was training in the warehouse with Dr. Tom Pritchard back in 1996. And he was there for a long time. I think it was 7, 8, 9 months, but a long time. And I remember the first thing I said to him when I walked by him was, I said, "You're going to be a superstar one day." And he goes, "Really, D? Why do you say that?" And I said, "You have charisma and you have that $1 million smile. All you got to do is work on your in-ring stuff, but you have that it factor. You have that charisma. I can tell just by seeing you." And he was very humble back then and very not outgoing, but I still sensed that he had that it factor with him. So I saw him there. And then, I was actually befriending him at the time. I would take him out to dinners since before he was even on TV. And I would buy him dinners because he wasn't making that much money. And we would talk, and I thought that we were friends. We had each other's number. And then he started to, like, get on TV. The first spot that I ever put him in was an updated version of the Attitude spot. And he was just such a great guy to work with at first, just very humble, very accommodating, very appreciative, always said thank you. And he always called me D. And I like that about him. I really did. But over time, and we'll get there slowly, Derek.
Mhm.
And I have a story that I want to tell you towards the end of the show. But like,
Sure.
just how Hollywood got to him and how he changed, it just really disappointed me. And yes, he was phenomenal. Yes, he's like, transcended professional wrestling, went into Hollywood, just like, you can make a case that he was one of the greatest superstars ever, or the one, because so many people know who he is right now. And people will know who he is 20 years from now, a transcendental character. But I saw the human side of him, and I saw him when he was young and hungry and not famous. And then I saw him when he became very famous. And they were two different people, sadly.
When you think about the two different people, and to
Mhm.
me, you see the rise of him. We got a lot of comments on your tweet that is almost at 100,000 of the SummerSlam Open that you were cut off from airing because of
Mhm.
The Rock. When did you first see the tip of the iceberg move from Dwayne Johnson wrestler to The Rock?
It was right after Scorpion King. But before we go there, I'd like to say some good things about Rock. I enjoyed working with him. I did about a dozen shoots with him. Some of the commercials I did with him were for the video games, WrestleMania 2000. That was when he was in the limousine complaining about, this figure, The Rock, that's in the video game that is stealing all of his moves and all of his phrases. He's in a hot tub, complaining about this character. He was in a diner complaining about this character in the video game. And my dad, by the way, my dad's a central figure in all these stories. He was always
Yes.
an extra whenever I shot The Rock down in South Beach, because my dad lived like 45 minutes away in Boca Raton. And my dad was a fan of The Rock until later on. But that video game commercial, the SmackDown Hotel one, I thought that was a phenomenal commercial. Shooting the Method Man music video with The Rock. That was an overnight shoot in South Beach. And he was great. He was tremendous. This is before he went to Hollywood. One thing about that Method Man music video, I wrote down this quote from Jim Johnson, who worked on the song with Method Man. And Jim Johnson said to me, and for those fans that don't know, Jim Johnson is a legend as well. He came up with all the entrance themes for the wrestlers during the Attitude Era and beyond. He came up with the glass breaking for Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I love working with Jim. He would actually work on some of my spots as well and do the sound design. But he said this when he saw the music video with The Rock and Method Man. He said, "That's not the best song on the album, but the video you directed is tremendous and makes that song so much better. Thank you," because I was not happy with that song. He's overjoyed, and Vince hated the video because there's no violence in there. It's him looking like a Hollywood movie star before he is a Hollywood movie star, walking through all these clubs, or getting the attention of everybody that is there present. And it made him feel like a star. And one thing that Vince said why he didn't like it was because he looks like a movie star. And I said, well, I think he's going to be one day, so why don't we do this first? Why don't we make him appear like one first with the video? And Vince begrudgingly let the video air, but Vince wasn't happy with that video whatsoever. But he was great during that. It was done all night. And I'm going to tell you one thing he said about my directing style later on when I saw the turn in him. But one of the things I told him to do was to sit in this black Ferrari that we had. We had on a flatbed pickup truck, and we were driving all around South Beach for 45 minutes. And it was time lapse, which means everything is sped up. And I said, Rock, just put your hand on the steering wheel, sunglasses on at night, that's cool. And just try not to move whatsoever. Just keep as still as you can be. And I like that because you see him, which you think is in real time, but the background and the side views around him are sped up. They're going super fast. You can do that with green screens and with blue screens, but they never quite feel as real as doing it organically. There's a dimensional thing with them, and especially back then, they've gotten a lot better, Derek, but back then, you can always tell when something was green screened or blue screened. And, it was fun doing that shoot, and it was all night. And I mean, that was pretty easy just having to look like that for 30 minutes as we're driving all around. And of course, everybody who's passing us is seeing what we're doing, and they're all like honking their horns. There was no audio that was recorded, but it was fun. Then we had them walking through all these clubs, walking down South Street, the neon signs, the neon lights that were there. I mean, that just says superstar, that says celebrity. And that's what I want to make him be in that video. I want him to be not a wrestler. I didn't want violence in that video, because I wanted him to be somebody who was bigger than just being a wrestler, somebody who was Hollywood, somebody who was an A-list celebrity. And I think the video accomplished that, contrary to what Vince believed.
When you think about the thought process of building Rock up to be this larger than life character, and that's really what these shoots are all about, is portraying him as this larger than life character.
Yes.
You saw him backstage become the guy that's going to be the guy.
Yes.
What is your favorite backstage Rock story before he turned Hollywood?
I don't really have a favorite story because, again, I wasn't on the road much back then. I was in post-production. So I'd be sometimes editing something from Monday Night Raw the day of. But the times that I did go backstage, he was just a genuinely really nice guy, you know, talking with everybody. He made everybody seem important. I have a saying that, you know, everybody is a somebody. Nobody is just a nobody. You know, a nobody is somebody because everybody is a somebody. And that's how he made people feel. Like they were somebody, like they mattered, even if you didn't know them. And he was genuinely nice and sincere about that. And so that's like the biggest thing. It's not a story, but just how he behaved, you know, in the early part of his career. And he was thankful for everything. For every time we did a shoot, he was thanking the entire crew, thanking my director of photography, thanking the lighting guy. Just a really nice guy. He appreciated what we were doing with him and that we helped him build him into this big star. And, you know, he's just very grateful. And that's a part that I liked. And that's not the part that I saw toward the end.
You've told me this story off air, and it's time to bring this up.
Okay.
You had a major role in his ability to become that next level heel, shooting these backstage promos, did you not?
Yes, I did.
How did you help him get to that?
Well, Chris Chambers and I saw his potential. I'm not sure exactly who said that he should start calling himself The Rock, you know, in the third person. I'm not sure if it was Chris Chambers, who was a creative team, if I had something to do with that, but we all did. I remember like being with Chris Chambers and The Rock backstage and saying, call yourself The Rock. And he'd say, why? Well, it's kind of heelish, Rock, if you do that. And you're kind of like that heelish kind of a character. People don't like when you talk about yourself in the third person. It'd be like me saying, well, Sahadi says this, Sahadi says that. Or you saying, Sabato says this. It's just like, it's very egotistical and narcissistic. And it took him a while. It took him 3 months to finally get that down. He would mix in his live promos, I with The Rock. I was backstage. I mean, The Rock was backstage a little while ago, and The Rock saw. So it took him about 3 months to click in. He didn't understand why we wanted him to go that, but he trusted us. And Chris and I kept on, pushing that idea forward and saying, go with it. It'll make sense after time. And it did. And The Rock wouldn't be The Rock if he wasn't talking about The Rock and not Dwayne Johnson or I or me.
It's a little tweak. It is one tiny change that explodes him. The Rock says, the great one this.
Yes.
You're not saying if it wasn't for me or this recommendation, he was never going to turn into it. But that one little character tweak goes such a long way that it redefines the character. And then when you have that capability that he was a natural athlete. He also had, and I'll say this out loud, the greatest guy putting his matches together in Pat Patterson.
Oh, Pat was phenomenal. Yes. Yeah.
You start combining all that, he was never going to fail. Regardless of Rocky sucks, yes. He was going to make it, was he not?
Of course. And with great production, television, both, filming these commercials and these ID pieces and live on TV, how we were presenting him, he couldn't fail. No, he was, he blossomed at the exact same time that wrestling was blossoming in the late 1990s. And yes, we all helped him with The Rock. That was a seed, but everything else he said after that, that's all him, but that little seed enabled him to say all these great things about himself and all these monikers that he referred to himself to. So you give him credit for that, but he might not have gotten there as quickly without us pushing The Rock, The Rock, The Rock. So that little seed led to everything.
And speaking of everything, he main evented 3 WrestleManias in a row, 15 against Austin, 2000 with the McMahon in every quarter against Triple H, Mick Foley, and Big Show. Yeah. Right back at X7 with Steve Austin, and what many call the main event of WrestleMania 18 against Hollywood Hogan.
And I call too. Same thing. I'm with you on that 100%. Yeah.
When you think about 3 WrestleManias that he was in the main event for. And the year before, and I think everybody forgets about this, the WrestleMania before he was the main eventer, it was him and Ken Shamrock in the mid card for the Intercontinental title. He went from being this comedy honky tonk kind of character holding up the IC title to headlining the 3 biggest shows in professional wrestling history, 3 consecutive years. It's hard to find anyone until the Roman Reigns era that had that capability. You saw it. You were there for it. What was it like to see Rock on top?
It was phenomenal. And again, I was a big fan of the character. And like every week, you wouldn't know what he would say, but he'd come up with something that was different. And that was just the pure genius and the talent that he had. I mean, I loved the character of The Rock. I loved watching all of his matches. He would always improvise at times too and come up with something on the fly. So he was just, you know, a great character, a great person to see wrestle, a great entertainer. Probably more than a great wrestler, but a great entertainer. Everything that he did, everything that he said, his body mannerisms, his gestures, they were tremendous. They really were. And that all started with the people's eyebrow when he was with the Nation of Domination.
Absolutely. So when you put all that package together and he's an entertaining figure, he is larger than life. He carries himself at a high standard. Hollywood comes calling.
Yeah, and that's when everything changed, because with all the fame that he had in the wrestling world and all the celebrity status there, he was still a genuinely humble, nice, sincere guy.
When he goes to do the Scorpion King and he comes back, what's different about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson?
There was a movie before that. Was it The Mummy, or there was something where he
Mummy
was
Returns.
Yes. That's when I noticed a change, because I was doing a shoot with him. I think it was an ID shoot or some other kind of shoot. I don't exactly remember the shoot, but I remember he made this comment a couple of times. I said, Rock, I want you to stand over here and do this and do that. And he goes, I know, David, I've worked with better directors than you in Hollywood. And I'm like, wow. I mean, he didn't say it in that kind of like angry way, but those words still carried that resonance with it of, you know, anger and like, you know, you're not as good as you think you are. And it's just like, wow, I helped build this guy from the beginning, all the commercial shoots I did with him, the music video. And now he's throwing that at me. And yeah, okay, I'm probably not as great as the directors that are in Hollywood, but they're working with multi-million-dollar budgets. We're working with $50,000 budgets. I think I'm the best director in wrestling as far as the image spots are concerned, because I came up with a lot with just a little amount of money. It's all about being creative and doing things outside the box. So he mentioned that a bunch of times. And that's when I'm like, something's changing with this guy. You know, it's like, yeah, I've worked with better directors than you in Hollywood. That irked me. That really did. I don't know if one of those directors in Hollywood could help build Dwayne, Rocky Maivia into The Rock, you know, while he was with the WWE. But, you know, we certainly did. So you got to, you know, give us some credit there too.
Were you surprised he crossed over into Hollywood?
No, I knew it was coming. I did. And that's why I want to do that, you know, the WrestleMania 2000 music video with the Method Man and make him look that way, because I knew it was happening. It was inevitable. I had that sense. It was bound to happen. He just had too much charisma, too much star power. He was intelligent. He was smart. He could remember lines. He could also go off script and be just as entertaining. So I knew it was going to happen. I knew back in the Warehouse days, believe it or not, that he was larger than life. Just that smile and that it factor. When he was humble, and this kid that was training that never been on TV before, I could sense it back then. And that's a tribute to his talent, a God-given talent that he has.
The change.
Yeah.
The first time, as you referenced, that snide comment, but then you rearranged everything for him. Is that right?
Yeah. And now you might get some emotion out of me, a little bit of anger. And if I talk about my father, you might get a little bit of a different kind of emotion, a sad emotion. But yeah, you want to talk about the infamous ID shoot where The Rock kind of blew me off? Is that the one that you want to?
That's
so yeah. So normally we do an ID shoot about once a year with all the talents, and the theme is always different. One year could be lightning strikes. One year it's like, you know, rain, so they're wet and they look great in that kind of a scene. This ID shoot we wanted to do, and we didn't want to do it in Miami, but The Rock just happened to be coming back from shooting the Scorpion King. So we had an entire set that was constructed at the American Airlines Arena. That was the name of it back then. on a house show that was on a Saturday. It was a weekend show. It was a house show. And it was Rocky's first time back in the ring. He wanted to work the rust off before a big match that he had coming up at WrestleMania. So we planned on doing the ID shoot there. And Derek, by now, he's no longer call me D.
Right.
By now, I no longer have his phone number. He's got a different phone number. By now, not only can I call him directly, but I have to go through his agent and his publicist and the office just to book him. So we agreed that we would work with him and shoot for 1 hour. He'd get more time than anybody because we knew that he was going back to Hollywood after his match at WrestleMania, I believe, or SummerSlam. And it's just, I'm getting angry to think about this because we went out of our way to accommodate him. He lived 20 minutes away in Davie, Florida. So when he first arrives, I have John Cena on the set. I said, "Hey, Rock, how you doing? Hey, guys, stop down for a second." And he's like, "Hey, good to see you, David." And, I sensed that was not genuine.
Yeah.
I said, "You know that we have a shoot today. We need you for like an hour." He goes, "Yeah, I know. I've been told by this person, by that person." I said, "Well, if you want to like bang it out of the way, early and get it done with, I'll get anybody off the set that you want. We can do it." He goes, "Let me just walk around and just say hi to everybody first. I said, "Give me an hour." And I said, "Sure." And I didn't give him an hour. I gave him 2 hours, Derek. And I go find him and he's playing cards now. And I'm like, "So Rocky, you want to like get ready and do the shoot just so it doesn't get too close to your match time?" He goes, "Nah, let me finish this game of cards and I'll get dressed and give me 1 more hour." So I give him 1 more hour and true to his word, he's getting dressed in his gear. And I say, "Rocky, you getting dressed in your gear for the shoot? You about ready?" He goes, "No, actually, I want to go over the match first with my opponent. And once I go over the match first, then I'll do the shoot with you. But I promise you we'll do it before, the match happens." Time's going by, another hour, and I'm starting to fume. I mean, it's just boiling up in me. I'm just festering. And I see him. It's about an hour before his match. I said, "Rocky, you're done talking over your match. Let's shoot this thing right now." He goes, "I'll meet you by the grill position," because that's where the set was. It was right there by the grill position. The grill position was on the right side. We were on the left side. And no, it wasn't what you see on WWE Unreal, the one that they made just for TV grills.
Yeah.
And so he shows up and I say, "Rocky, let's go to shoot this." He goes, "Let me watch this match. I'm intrigued by this match." And he's watching the match before and the match before his match. 2 matches. And I get the feeling he's blowing me off, Derek. And I am seething because right now he's the last person that I have. I shot everybody else. I said, "Rock, let's get this." And he goes, "D, my match is coming up. I promise you, the minute the match is over, we'll do it, okay? We'll do it. We will." Goes out there. I am fucking pissed, dude. I'm sitting there and I'm just like, watching the match. It's over. It's a house show. He's saying his goodbyes. And I am standing like this on the other side of the curtain, 10 feet away. And he comes walking through the curtain and he's sweaty and he sees me. And I'm like, "Rock, there now." And he goes, "Really, David? Really? You gonna do this to me?" I said, "Yeah, really." He goes, "I don't have time for this right now." I said, "We came down here just for you. You promised us an hour. We're going to do this shoot right now. Or I'm going to tell Vince that you told me no. How do you like that?" He's like, "Hey, 5 minutes, David. That's all you get are 5 minutes." And he's angry at me, and I'm angry at him. I'm like, "Fine, I'll fucking take those 5 minutes, Rock. Fine. Nice attitude you have, brother." So we get him on the set, and about 2 minutes in, there's a hair in the gate. It makes a certain sound. And him now being the Hollywood movie star, 2 movies, he knows what that means. And he goes, "What is that?" I said, "It's hair in the gate." He goes, "All right, I'm done. I'm not going to wait." Even though it would have taken 1 minute to fix. And he's walking off. So we get 2 minutes to 5 minutes. I said, "Hey, Rocky, did you see, do you ever get the books that I sent you?" He goes, "What books? I never got any books." I said, "No, the 3 I said I was going to send you after our last shoot before you went to film The Scorpion King." He goes, "I never got them." And I said, "It's funny because I have the FedEx receipt that you signed for. I recognize your signature." And I caught him in a lie, Derek. And he stopped right there. He turned to me and says, "D, how's your father doing?" And I'm like thinking in my head, this motherfucker, I'm sorry for cussing.
That's okay.
This motherfucker, he knows my dad is my heart. He's going to play that card and go right to my heartstrings because I caught him in a lie. And if someone would admit that I caught him in a lie, I said, "Rock, he's doing great." And in my mind, I'm like, "You motherfucker." Because there's a line that I remember from Batman. It says, "Sometimes you have to play the role of the fool in order to fool the fool who thinks he is fooling you. So now I'm playing that dumb role. I know he's playing me, but I think that he is. How come your dad couldn't be here tonight, D? I said, you know, Rock, he had better things to do. And I'm saying in my head, I wouldn't fucking want him to see you and your fucking attitude anyway. I'm glad he's not here fucking tonight. And we finally get back there, and then he's cool for 5 minutes. But to invoke that card about my father, and I catch him in a lie. So first of all, try to blow off the entire shoot. I think it was intent the entire night to blow me off, because he kept on blowing me off. I think he never wanted to do the shoot, even though we agreed to that 1 hour. So it's just like, you know what? Screw him. We had an entire team that went to Miami for The Rock. We shot everybody, but it was really about The Rock. I changed my schedule for The Rock. The shoot was really about The Rock. And guess what? He didn't want to do it. He walked off, and his match was over, and says, I don't have time for that. And I said, you're going to do it. I'm going to tell Vince, as I described earlier. So, you know what? Just really left a bad taste in my mouth. And it's sad because that's the last time I ever got to work with The Rock. This is 2003. And I left later on that summer. And yes, Derek, everybody's allowed to have a bad day. God knows I've had many.
Sure.
We've all had many. But it's just unfortunate that, you know, The Rock had a bad day on the last time I ever had to work with him. And I'm pissed for days after the shoot, because I'm driving back to my dad's house, and I'm thinking, my God, everything I've done for The Rock for so many years, going out of my way, doing all these all-night shoots with him as well, the creative ideas that I had for his character, helping develop his character, boosting his confidence before he even appeared on TV. Everything I did, take him out to dinner as a friend, being able to call him as a friend, and this is how it ends, with him blowing me off on a friggin' ID shoot. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, just like, you know, Hollywood got to his head. He was too big for me, too big for everybody in the WWE, I guess. But that just really left a bad taste in my mouth. I remember, Derek, when I wrote that chapter in my book about 2 years ago, I sent it to a friend, and the friend said, are you sure you want that published? And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, everybody who thinks that The Rock is this nice guy and a role model, they're going to think differently of him. And I'm like, well, it's an actual story that happened. I'm just going to tell an actual story. And then when the publisher was reading my sample chapters, that was one of them. And he said, are you sure you want this chapter out there? And I'm like, yeah. Why? And he goes, well, you're going to say, you're throwing shade at some very important, prominent people. And I said, can I get sued by Vince? Because that was one chapter as well. Or The Rock. He goes, sure. No, you can't get sued. We wouldn't let you get sued, because we would get sued as well, being the publisher. But you're going to burn some bridges. And I said, Michael, that's the publisher's name, Michael, the bridges I might burn are bridges I never want to cross again, so I don't care. And he goes, that's what I wanted to hear. Let's go. Write me some more chapters. You're going to get a deal. And we got a deal. But like, a friend was like afraid of me like exposing The Rock in this kind of way. But I've heard many stories about The Rock on set having issues with people. And it wasn't just me. But again, with me, it was personal, because he was a nobody at first, even though he was a somebody. I made that little analogy earlier, but it's just like, I was there before he was even on TV, talking with this guy, helping this guy. And then I saw his growth to Hollywood, which I knew was going to happen. And I was so happy for him. I really was genuinely happy. And then to get treated that way the last time I ever worked with him, completely disrespectful, completely unexpected. And that's my last memory, ever seeing him in person and working with him.
AOTV Productions has a great super chat we're going to put up on the screen, and it's a question that's been discussed a lot in the professional wrestling industry. Mm-hmm. Earlier this year, Vince Russo theorized Rock is trying to make Triple H look bad, so he'll be removed from creative. Do you think there's any truth to it?
Well, yeah, Vince Russo there, and you have The Rock there, so the probability of there being any truth there is, I don't know. It seems like, you know, you got a couple of workers that are there. I'll say of the three people, the one I believe the most is Triple H. He probably has most credibility in my book, because I work with Triple H. I've talked to Triple H, and he always treated me well. He's always honest with me. I told you last week the story where he dropped the belt to Hogan.
Yes.
And he told me 2 days beforehand in the gym in Stanford that he was going to remain champion, because I had to know that stuff. And he genuinely believed that he was going to remain champion when he told me that. He didn't lie to me. He was telling me the truth at that time. Something happened those 48 hours where they decided that, you know, the belt was going to change, and Hogan was going to get that. So of the three of those people there, I believe in the credibility of Triple H the most.
Do you
Oh, keep it going. Get me started. I don't feel like if you give me my best yet tonight. Get me
do
going.
do you think the Rock's returns, various returns
Mhm.
to WWE, have everything to do with him having that board seat for TKO and it purposely just being him doing what he wants and no one can say no to him?
Yes, and it's been that way since he became famous in Hollywood. It's always been about what's best for The Rock. What's best for The Rock. So yeah, it has everything to do with that. I firmly believe that. And
Do
it's
you
sad
think?
because as a fan, I still mark out. It was last year when he came back with
Sure.
the end of it when there were all the surprises that were coming back. Ended with the Undertaker, but it was like John Cena, this person, that person. The Rock comes there. It's like, as a fan, I'm marking out for the character The Rock. I'm loving
Right.
that. I completely marked out, but the person, I separated the two, but like the person that is playing The Rock, just I no longer have respect for that man. And it's funny how it's all about him right now, Derek, because when he was coming up through the ranks, everything we were doing was all about helping him
Yeah.
become this great guy. And now everything is all about him putting himself over, making himself, in a position that benefits him the most.
Were you shocked to see Rock come back last year and then not go through with the singles match between him and Roman Reigns?
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, why would you do that? I would have liked to see that match as a fan. So yeah,
Do
I
you
was shocked.
do you think the goal was to undercut Cody, or do you think that was just two different creative forces clashing at that point?
Yeah, I hope it wasn't to undercut Cody, but you never know. I have a lot of respect for Cody Rhodes. I was talking to a friend today when he mentioned to me that TNA might be moving up against AEW, and he was trying to figure out what I thought about that. And I said, I think it's WWE's way of saying, hey, AEW they're down right now. They're bleeding, they're wounded. Their ticket sales are not as great as they once were. Their ratings are not, great anymore. They're once a threat to WWE when they first, emerged on the scene in 2019, 2020. They're not a threat anymore. WWE has established themselves as the force. So I think it's their way, if they put TNA on against them, of like putting the final nail in the coffin. And I said to this guy, I said, Cody Rhodes, think about this. Whether it was All Out or All In, it was his idea. Him, the Young Bucks, Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, they were the elites before there was All Elite Wrestling. Tony Khan, I believe, backed that mega show, but it was Cody Rhodes' idea. He was one who created that. So you can say he created AEW. So when one of your creators, one of your founders, a Vince McMahon-like character, jumps ship and goes to WWE, that tells you everything about what he thinks about AEW and where he's heading. It's like he got off the Titanic before it sinks, and I think it's about ready to sink. For wrestling fans, I don't wish that. The more the merrier, but I think it's a sinking ship right now, and WWE sees an opportunity to make sure that ship goes down.
AOTV Productions has a good super chat here. It seems like The Rock will start something hot and then suddenly leave before it finishes. That just Rock being Rock?
Yeah, and I agree with him right there too.
And
unless it's turning out advantageous, he'll stay. But if it's not, he would jump and quit. I want to see that next one yet coming up there. I'm ready for it.
Ibzan has this question: with The Rock working with TKO, what do you think it might be his end goal to be working with the higher ups?
To own something mega. Maybe even an NFL franchise. Maybe it's something we're not even thinking about right now. That just popped in my head.
Yeah.
But to be an owner of something that is major, that's what I think will be his end goal.
Porter Blaze has a great question. In his book, Brock Lesnar wrote about Rock going out of his way to politically make sure he kept the title. Did Hollywood change him, or was he always like that?
Hollywood changed him. He was never like that. He would always do the job if he had to. Before Hollywood, he knew the business. It's like you're a title holder for a while, and eventually you have to, drop the belt to somebody else to build storylines, and the rematches are always great as well when you drop the belt. So yeah, it's if he got that way, I was gone by that point. But yeah, it's him being selfish and him, just Hollywood getting to him.
And we got to The Rock tonight here on Beyond the Lens with David Sahadi. We covered a ton of information. The TNA possible TV deal with CW, with the WWE's backing. We covered WWE Untold and how Hollywood changed The Rock. We appreciate everyone joining us here live tonight on podcaststevewrestling.com. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications for the next time we go live. Make sure you follow David at David Sahadi. Go take a look at the cold open that The Rock unfortunately killed before SummerSlam 2002. It is up on David's feed. It is 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes of just.
You mean the one that The Rock killed that never aired because it didn't benefit The Rock? Yes, Hollywood Rock, right there.
And that's how we got to our conversation here tonight. Make sure you throw us a follow and a like. Make sure you turn on notifications and subscribe here on podcaststevewrestling.com. David, this was everything I expected it to be this week and more. Do you think we missed anything about The Rock?
Yes. So some other stuff I want to talk about next week about The Rock and why mentioning my father, invoking that card hurts so much. I want for the audience to know why that hurts so much. I want to talk about the relationship with my father that was special, unlike anybody else. Mike Tenay talks about it. I'll tell you all about that, on the next show. Just maybe to start a little bit, but like when you know the relationship I had with my dad, and what I went through with him, and how we nearly lost him, and he didn't know who I was for a while. For The Rock to pull that card, just how dare he? That's like a line you don't cross, and he did.
We will get into that next week here on Beyond the Lens. Drop us a like, a comment, subscribe, and make sure you turn on notifications. We'll see you next week right here on Podcast Eat Wrestling.
TNA.